episode of the On the Radar producer series, and man, I don't even know how to. This is such a dope. This is so dope for me. I'm here with RSONIST of The Heatmakers, diplomats.
Appreciate it, my brother.
Bro, first of all, I'd like to say how big of a fan I am.
I appreciate it, man.
My boy Dante hit me up, and he's like, I got this producer for you to interview, and he's the mind behind Dipset Anthem.
Yeah.
So many joints from Cameron, like I had to come in. We're here, Diamond District Studio.
And you gotta explain, you know, it might be off topic a little bit, but you gotta explain who Dante is, man, because his pops is a major piece of history.
Of course. So Dante Music, if you don't already know, his pops Cameron. Y'all see me?
No, his pops is not Cameron. British. My man British is his pops. British, you know, British is he manages Cam now, but I knew British from years ago. Again, he's a pillar to Dipset, so you know, I just don't want to just say Dante like, you know, Dante's father's yeah, of course, you have to, man, so people understand that. Yeah. So when they hear his name again, they understand he's connected to. He's connected to musical history. Yeah. You know
so I wanted to ask you. So let's start from the very beginning. So you came from Kingston, Jamaica, right?
No, I wasn't born in Kingston. Well, it says that online. I know that, but I was born in Mandeville, Jamaica.
Got it.
And I moved to. Me and my family moved to the Bronx when I was about 3 years old, 2.5, 3 years old.
So how did you get into producing?
I used to DJ. I went to Howard University and I used to DJ. I kind of always had a love for music, but then production just came about because my homeboy Thriller, who was my partner in Heatmakers during that time, he bought an MPC and he went out of town and asked me if I could hold it. I made a couple beats on it. Ended up selling those 2 beats to a guy by the name of Todd Terry. I'm giving you the Cliff Notes version of my story. You know what I'm saying? Sold those 2 beats to a guy by the name of Todd Terry. He took a liking to me, ended up buying me about $20,000 to $30,000 worth of music equipment, sent it to my crib, and I was off to the races after that.
That's amazing. You know. And how did you end up hooking up, I guess, with
Dipset?
Dipset, you know?
Me and my people ran into a dude by the name of Renee McLean who was, he used to get records on radio for people, like that's what he did. He got records placed, but he also, at the time, he managed Cam. So when we met up with him to get some records placed on the radio for some artists we were working with, he was like, yo, what do y'all do? And we said, we produce. He said, yo, I manage Cam, give me some beats. And I always walked with a beat CD on me. I gave him a CD with like 20 beats on there. And out of those 20 beats, 9 of them ended up being on Diplomatic Immunity.
And one of them was Dipset Anthem too?
Nah, Dipset Anthem, that was one of the 2 that wasn't on the CD. I made that after they started picking records.
That's crazy. Yeah. So when you made Dipset Anthem, did you know it was going to be like...
No, I was going to throw it out. My cousin walked in the crib and was like, yo, that's fire. And I'm like, you think so? Because during that time, I used to make about, no exaggeration, 5 to 6 beats a day. Right. You know what I'm saying? So that was probably like my 6th beat of the day, and I'm making it, and I'm like, I couldn't tell if it was hot because I made so many. I didn't know if my ears were biased to...
You was on like the tail end of...
Right. So if my cousin didn't walk in that record, who knows, that would have changed history. In a lot of facets, you know what I'm saying? So
you did that record and then you just passed it along to them and
Yeah, because the way it worked back then was, this was pre-email, pre-send it to me, you know what I mean? It was, you went to the studio, you played music, and they picked what they liked, and it was a competitive environment. It was me, it was Kanye, it was Just, it was a bunch of other producers like around that time, and we would all go in the studio and play beats live.
Right.
So you went home knowing that later that night you were gonna have to compete with the best of the best to get your music placed. So I worked differently, you know what I mean? I made minimum 6 joints a day every day of my life. I wasn't one of them dudes that I was outside chilling. I was working consistently.
So you mentioned the playing beats in the studio. So I want to ask you, since this is a good kind of segue, is how do you feel that the culture of like producing has changed from, you know, back when, you know, you were alongside with all the other biggest producers in the city, you know, and along with like Kanye West playing the beats for the artists, to like, you know, what it is now?
I think it's changed in the sense of producers try to get away with a lot more. Like, they'll send out a half-ass beat because they don't have to look the artist in the face while they're playing it.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, to me, when you're in the same room as the artist, there's a certain level of accountability that you have to uphold yourself to, where it's like, if you know you just heard 15 fire beats from 4 or 5 of the hottest producers in New York, and now it's your turn, and you're playing some bullshit, you're gonna feel a way.
Yeah.
So that alone is gonna drive you to only bring out the best of the best. When I said I made 6 a day, I might have only kept 3 because the other 3 I didn't feel was up to par with what I knew I was gonna hear that night.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So I think now people hide behind the computer the same way with trolling online and all that shit. This is a coward's era. You understand? When I say that, I mean like you can do and say things and hide behind the computer. So if you send out beats and they're trash and the artist hits you back and say, nah, I didn't really like none of those, now you get offended because you feel like he's supposed to pick something. Meanwhile, you don't know all the other fire that he just listened to before he got to your bullshit. So I just think there's no accountability nowadays.
Like,
you know,
people feel kind of entitled to, like...
They feel as if because they're only around them and their homeboys that their shit is fire.
Right.
Meanwhile, if you step out into the real world amongst the real competition, you realize you're in the lower level of this whole shit.
The metros of the world.
Right. It's like, at the end of the day, it's like, I commend anybody that puts their music online and lets the world judge it. Like, I'll make beats and I'll put on my Instagram page because I'm that confident in my shit where it's like, it's been proven that, this is almost like it's a trial and error thing over and over again for me to kind of test what the people love and what they like and what they dislike. And I think a lot of artists are scared to do that because they're scared of the rejection.
Right.
So, and that's where the problem comes in. People don't want to hear that their music isn't any good because now they feel as if, like, who are you to tell me that? That's your fans.
I agree. Because I agree with you because, you know, coming from my generation, I feel like a lot of people are just really too sensitive about the shit that they do nowadays. You know?
Right.
People don't want to hear the criticism. People don't want to hear the feedback, even if it's going to make them better.
Right.
Like, a lot of people just, you know, they put their shit out into the world, and when people...
You got it.
Like,
look at the way the world works, right? And it'll explain why people act like that. And I hate to sound like one of them old-ass niggas like, yo, when I was... But now people are scared. They want to win right away. They're scared to wait because everything is instantaneous. Instagram. Like, right now. Nothing is... Yo, you gotta build this up and wait and then you'll get a fan base, and people don't want to hear that. They want to hear, I'm gonna put out a record tomorrow, it's gonna go viral, I'm gonna be the next biggest shit that's on the gram or on Twitter or whatever it is. The game doesn't work like that. Maybe for 0.0001% it does, but for the rest of reality, you have to work to get to your goals and get to what you want to get to. And that's the problem now, is everybody throws bullshit out and they expect champagne taste from beer. You understand what I'm trying to tell you? They're giving you bullshit and they're expecting diamonds in reward. Like, what are you talking about? You just gave me some bullshit. Since when does shit turn into diamonds? It don't work like that.
Right.
You understand? Like, I don't know, man. I just think the game right now is off track because people want instant results.
Right. Have you worked with any kind of like the younger artists out here, or anybody that you can think of?
I'm sure I have. You know what I'm saying? Like, I did some work with T Grizzly a couple years, like maybe about a year and a half, going on 2 years. Who else? A bunch of dudes. Like, I just did records with, like, from the DC Young Flies to the Fat Boy SSEs to the just a bunch. I just know who I'm working with now. I'm working with a bunch of But I've seen all of them and worked with a bunch of them. P&B Rock, I've done stuff with. Just a bunch of people, man. A bunch of people.
So I wanted to talk to you. I kind of wanted to bring it back a little bit. You know, you worked on Jim Jones's new album, El Capo.
Right.
How is it? I don't know. How is, I guess, your relationship with all these guys? Because, you know, I know you still work with a lot of them to this day.
Right.
How has your relationship, you know, been able to, like, how has your sound and their artistry kind of like evolved at the same time? Because, you know, like, obviously, like, y'all got something that, like, you know, y'all keep coming back to each other, y'all like get each other, and
I think because musically
y'all still make heat to this day.
I think musically we understand each other. It's like sometimes I might work with an artist that's never worked with me before and they're not accustomed to my sound, so when I do certain things they don't know how to approach the music anymore, and that's never the case with Jim, Cam, or Joel's. You know what I mean? It's never been the case. I can tell you what they're gonna like before I give it to them. Right. You know what I mean? Like, sometimes I'll throw some experimental shit in there just to see if they fuck with it. But for the most part, if I send 7 tracks over, I can tell you which 3 or 4 they're gonna fuck with, guaranteed. And I think that's the difference. A lot of producers just shoot blanks in the air and hope that, you know what I mean, it hits something. I don't really do that. With them, it's like I know what their fans want to hear them over, and I know what they'll sound good over. So I give them that. You know what I'm saying?
So what was it? So talk to me about, like, Jim's new album. So how many records you did on it? You did
everything. I produced every record.
Produced the whole record.
Yeah, it's actually our project. It's a Jim Jones Heatmakers project. We did it together. It was like a joint project. Yeah.
So now, were you in the studio when he did like the records like with Fat Joe and whatnot?
We did everything. Only like a lot of the features they sent him in.
Okay.
Fat Joe actually came to my studio to record his verse.
The studio or the
other studio. Yeah.
Got you.
This verse, this studio. Cam did his verse for Pity in the Summer in here, and Fred did his verse for Pity in the Summer in here, and I'm trying to see what other records features might have did, and I think that's about it. Every other feature did it in their studio, from Fab to Benny, Conway. Who else is on the album? Damn. Well, matter of fact, Trav recorded in the studio also. My man Mark Scabilia, he did 2 in my studio and 2 in his studio. He sent to me. Currency did it in his studio. Yeah, so for the most part, it was really just Joe, Trav, and my man Mark that recorded it in my spot.
That's dope, and that's dope that like people like Joe still comes to the studio.
Yeah,
work with each other.
But I've known Joe for over 15 years now, if not longer. Yeah, about 15 years I've known Joe.
And you're working on Remy's upcoming project, right?
Yeah.
It's coming. I don't know.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know the release date, but if I had to guess, I would guess first quarter of next year. If I had to guess, I don't know anything definitive, so don't take my word for nothing.
Nothing here.
But I did some work on there, and it's kind of fire.
I've been looking forward to that.
It's kind of fire.
I feel like she's needed that solo project for a while.
And I think this should happen, man. This is the Bronx.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, like, I did a lot of work for Harlem, but I'm from the Bronx, so it's just dope to do records with Remy and do records with Joe and Fred, and you know what I mean? Like, really just, I love every borough, man, so I don't want to get it twisted. I love every state, but I'm from the Bronx, so I have a certain hometown pride.
Right. So I want to ask you, this is your new studio, right?
Yeah.
So what does it take, for like, if you're talking to upcoming producers who are trying to get in the game, who want to have their own studio one day, what type of advice, I guess, would you give them?
Don't waste your money. Not on the studio. Don't waste your money on other things, because then you won't have the money to get something like this. Like this, you got to explain to them, this is in the middle of Midtown Manhattan, so real estate here is different than if I rented a studio in the middle of Queens, the middle of the Bronx, out of town somewhere. This is like other than Beverly Hills, this is the second most expensive place for real estate. You know what I'm saying? So, but again, it shows a certain level of professionalism, because when people come to my spot and I'm here, they understand a lot of things. They understand, one, I'm not really hurting for nothing, not like that. Like not a lot of a lot of producers that's out the game and they really can't make things happen. I'm still 100% in the mix, and I'm in the heart of it all. You know what I'm saying? I'm in the Diamond District. This is the only studio in the Diamond District ever in history.
Right.
So
I have to say that your location is probably most easily accessible out of all the studios that we've been to.
And the crazy part is, the name of my studio always was Diamond District, and now I'm in the Diamond District.
So where was
that's
it
crazy.
before this?
Where was it?
Yeah.
It was on 57th and Broadway.
So you manifested that essentially.
Yeah, which is crazy.
Do you think that like now people just they just kind of waste their bread on things that they don't need instead of focusing on?
Of course, because what happens to a lot of artists, you think, or a lot of new accomplished artists, is that you think the money will never run out. You always think that. I mean, especially if you're getting a lot of it. Like when I came in the game, you got to remember, I'm doing Diplomat albums damn near by myself with a major label, so they're paying me major money for, you know what I'm trying to tell you? I'm just trying to put it in perspective for you. I'm doing the whole Diplomat album, the whole Jewel's album. we're doing Lil Wayne's album. I'm getting Cameron's album. I'm getting publishing deals. I'm getting just the brown paper bag money off of dudes on the streets that might have had whatever they had and they threw together. And now that was happening all the time, to the point I'm turning people down because I'm trying to save some music for people in the industry. So when shit like that is happening in your brain, you can't foresee a day where that's not going to happen. But in the entertainment field, trends change and things happen. So my advice to new artists, like you said, I mean, back to what you asked me, is be realistic with yourself.
Right.
This shit does not last forever. I'm not saying that you won't continue to make money from music, but there's going to be peaks and valleys. So there might be a year that you made 1.2 million, and the next year you might fuck around and make 200,000. You understand? Like, so
save your money.
Right. Be smart with what you have and realize that this shit does not last forever.
And you mentioned that times change and whatnot. How have you been able to kind of like keep up with like the various changes in music throughout the years? Because they're even in the last 2-3 years now, and in the streaming age,
right.
people drop shit one day and then like 2 weeks later they'll consider that shit
it's old, of course.
And that's super whack, of course.
Right.
But like there've been so many different changes in the sounds of hip hop over the past couple of years.
Yeah, but the people that fade, they never created a brand for themselves.
Right.
I created a brand. I tell people Heatmakers, whether they associated with Dipset or they associated with sped up samples or they associated with soul music, whatever the fuck they associated with something. And that's what I've tried to build over the years was a stamp. So when you say Heatmakers, regardless if it's 5 years from now, 10 years from now, you're gonna pay me what I'm asking you because you understand I'm one of the only few that can do this type of shit.
Right.
And do it well. Like there's a bunch of people that do it, but who does it well? You understand? I'm not trying to sound arrogant, but you have to understand what I'm saying. In this music game, we get it twisted. Everybody can make music. Who makes it well? Who makes it so that it stands the test of time and you listen to it 10 years from now and you say, oh, this was my shit? Not a lot of people.
Yeah.
Some shit you're going to listen to 10 years from now and be like, yo, this shit what the fuck was I listening to? And that's a fact.
Yeah.
Like I ask a lot of artists, yeah, you got a hit record, but can you see yourself performing this shit at 55 on stage? And are your fans going to come out to see this song when they're 55 with children? Probably not.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not going to name any artist names, but you can put the puzzle together and throw some names out that make sense to what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Nobody
like
wants
right.
Nobody wants to see certain artists jumping around saying 2-word hooks when they're 55 years old and they got kids at home and grandkids on the way. Nobody wants to see that shit. So I'm saying all that to say people know what's going to stand the test of time, and you can either pay for that or you don't pay for it and you get the bullshit that's not going to last.
Right.
So,
That was a fucking amazing explanation of that, by the way.
I appreciate it.
That was fucking great. So, before I let you go and all that, I wanted to, what else you got coming up? You got some more projects that you work on?
Fred and Joel, Gorilla Glue Part 2. I just did 3 records on Joel's new project Monday. Go check that out. Who else?
Get some more with Cam stuff coming eventually?
Oh, yeah. The Cam program too. He has another project after the program with A-Track that he did. I think I did 1 record on that.
Dope.
Just everybody, man. Just stay tuned, man. Listen for Heatmakers crack music. You hear it.
Heatmakers. Last thing. Let any producer, if you have like 1 or 2 words or like a sentence, just that you could tell an upcoming producer, what to look out for in the game, what they should be careful with. What would you say?
Just know the business side, man. Understand what the value of a record is, the value of 1 million streams, whatever the fuck that is nowadays, because they change that shit whenever they feel like it.
Shit like every fucking month.
Right, but understand monetarily what you're doing with your music. You understand, like a lot of people, a lot of producers, they want to get records placed with major artists and do this, that, and the third. That's cool, or you can find somebody that that's nice and you and him build something together and make money that way, and then signed artists will start reaching for you because they know you make quality shit.
Right.
Or you can chase them for the rest of your life and never sell a beat. So you choose, you know what I'm saying? But my advice is be real to yourself. Sit back and analyze the game. There's a bunch of major artists, but let's just say there's 100 major artists that people care about. How many producers are chasing those same people?
Right.
Why would you go the road most traveled? Why wouldn't you go the road less traveled and you probably have an easier ride?
Probably.
Or a smoother ride.
Make a little more money.
And then the people from this road, they're gonna come fuck with you anyway because they're gonna see what you're doing and say, oh shit, that's where the wave is, I'm over there. But everybody wants to chase the same shit that everybody else is chasing, and then before you know it, you a 45-year-old dude that's been producing for 20 years and never got a placement. Nobody wants that.
There you go. RSONIST, thank you so much for letting me come by today, bro. It's been like an honor. It's an honor.
I appreciate it, my brother.
We got more producer interviews coming on the way. Check out RSONIST, New Heat, Cameron,
yes,
Remy Ma.
Everything.
Whole lot of shit coming out.
Jim Jones and Jimmy and the Heatmakers coming soon.
Capo out right now. We live from the Diamond District Studios. It's on the radar. Peace. That was dope, man.
All right, my brother.
There's you did so many gems in there.
Oh, yeah, that was gems.
Everyone beer, but it tastes like champagne.